Okay, hey everyone. I'm going to do day 2 of the Advent of Code here. If you watched yesterday, I did day 1, part 1, and part 2. And I'm just live coding this from scratch. I haven't looked at the problem yet, so you'll get to see my frustration and anger. Yesterday, I had some fun with Emacs. I'm running Spacemacs, and I think I had a weird update where it wasn't responding very well. So that was fun, but we got it solved okay yesterday. So someone asked why I'm doing this. Um, People like to watch people code and see what they're thinking. So I'm just giving an example of thinking. I'm also showing what I think are some best practices for developing code, especially in situations like this where this is almost like an interview, like you're interviewing for a job interview. Someone else said, "Why am I watching you drink soda?" They're my sponsor. This isn't soda, but I teach quite a bit. Like I was teaching this morning for a couple hours, and I got to take care of my mouth and my throat. So apologize for that. Cheers. I you know, so I lost my voice a couple years ago teaching, and you don't want to learn from Batman. It was painful for me. My students thought it was funny when I said same bat time, same bat place, but okay, bad jokes. So let's get going here. Day 2. So I'm on Advent of Code. Let's see if I can figure out how to go to day 2. Here is day 2. Your flight departs in a few days from Coastal Airport. The easiest way down the coast is via Toboggan. The shopkeeper at the North Pole is having a bad day. Something's wrong with our customers. We can't log in. You ask if you can take a look. Their password database seems to be a little corrupted. Some of the passwords wouldn't have been allowed by the official corporate policy, by the official Toboggan corporate policy that was in effect when they were chosen. To debug the problem, they've created a list of passwords and a corporate policy. For example, suppose you have the following list. Each line in the password policy, each line gives the password policy and then the password. The password policy indicates the lowest and highest number of times a given letter must appear for that password to be valid. For example, 1 to 3 means that a password must contain a at least one time and no more than 3 times. In the above example, 2 passwords are valid. The middle password is not. It contains no instances of B, but needs at least 1. Okay, how many passwords are valid according to their policies? Okay, so let's solve this. What I'm going to do, I'm going to use Emacs again today. Maybe I'll use a different editor some other day, some of the other days here. So I'll make dir2, and let's just, I'll just make a day 2 file in here. Okay, so we've got a line and it's got a number with dashes in between it, then a space, and then a letter, and then a colon. And so this shouts to me as using a regular expression. So maybe I'll do it without doing a regular expression right now, I generally reach to regular expressions as a last resort. I think it's pretty easy to parse this without a regular expression, but it might not be as clean. So let's try that. So I'll just make a little function here, eval line, and I'll have a line coming into it. I'm going to make a doc string here. Let me take one of these lines and pop it in here. That's not what I wanted. Okay, here's a line. Okay, so eval line, And this should say true. Okay, and let's do this. And this should say false. Okay, and I'll just come down here. I'll put my little snippet here to do this from doctest. You see, I really like doctest. Makes it easy to make little tests like this. Okay, so there's that. I'm going to write another function here to just get the ranges. Def get ranges. And that's going to take a line and range should return 1 and 3. Okay, so let's do this. So I'm assuming that there's going to be space there. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do this. I'll say return. I'm going to say line, and I'm going to split it. I'm going to split it on space. That should return multiple things in a sequence. I'm going to take the first one of that. That's 0, which would be a string with 1-3 in it. I'm going to split that string with a dash. That should give me a 0 and a 1. And then I want the first and the last of that. So I probably needed some intermediate here. Okay, I'll say that's nums, and then I'll just return map int to nums 0. Well, I didn't need to do a mapping. I imagine they're going to have me do some sort of mapping here. I'll just return this int nums -1. Okay, let's try this and see if it works. Python 3. Okay, so get ranges, looks like get ranges worked. Let's see. Yeah, get ranges worked. And the other two did not. Okay, so let's get our nums here. So I'm going to say n1 comma n2. I'm going to use what's called tuple unpacking, and I'm going to get the ranges from the line. Okay, and then the letter from here, or I'm going to call it the character. The character is equal to line. I'm going to split that on space. That's going to give me a sequence that has 3 things in it. I'll take the second one, which is going to be index 1, and I'm going to take everything but the last character, and so that should be the character. And then I'm going to get the password. I'm going to say line.split, and that's going to be the last thing from that. And then turns out that there's a function in Python. Let's look at the Python string here. Let's see, help on a string. So we got count. I think that's what we want. Return the number of non-overlapping sequences of substring. So let's just try this. A, B, C, D, E. And we'll do a count of A. Okay, that's 1. AA, that's 3. Awesome. Okay, so with that, we have the password, we have the character, and we have the numbers. And I'm just going to return n1 less than or equal to pw.count car less than or equal to n2. Okay, I think this is it. Let's see. Okay, everything passed there. So I think we're good here. Now we probably just need to hook it up to our input. How many valid passwords are there? Here's the puzzle input. Okay, just looking at this, it looks like it's all space delimited here. So my thing should work because of the space delimit. So let's save this. Okay. And let's hook this code up to run this. So yesterday I did just a poor man's hooking up here. So I just used sys and I did that. Maybe today I'll do a command line argument here. Oh, we got comments. Okay. So Paul says splitting on with nothing is better for white space. Yeah, that's true. So if you're not familiar with that, if I just say like split on a Python string and I've got like white space in it, so I've got like line is equal to, and I've got like space and then hello, and then like a tab, and then a new line, and then some more spaces, and then like goodbye. And I say like line.split, and I split that on space, I'm going to get this here. Interesting that the split will return these empty strings here, which is when you have like a space here, it's saying that there's empty strings between those, which is a little weird, but that's the behavior there, versus contrast that with just a line split, and that's just going to give us the words in there. So I'm going to leave it as is, Paul, just because it looks like they're using spaces here and not tabs. So I'm going to be a little bit more particular than just allowing any white space. But yeah, for those who aren't familiar with split, it's kind of weird that you can split on with nothing and do white space, which is actually very useful and turns out to be very useful a lot of times. Okay, so yesterday I did this poor man's thing where I just took the file name from the last argument here. Maybe today I'll use argparse to do that. So I'm going to come up here and say import argparse, and I'll import sys. So I need sys to get the command line arguments. Argparse is in the standard library, and it allows me to create command line arguments here. So I'm going to make a function called main. There's nothing particular about main that Python requires, but I'm going to pass in the command line arguments. And so argparse is a little particular here. It wants the command line arguments, but it doesn't want the first command line argument. So I'm going to slice that off. The first command line argument from the command lines is the name of the Python file, and argparse doesn't like that. So I'm going to say main args, and then I'm going to make an argument parser. Let's see if I can remember the syntax here. Argparse.argument parser. And I think on argparse you call add argument. And you give it a short name if you want to. So I'll say a file, and then a long name -- file. And then I'm going to say ops is equal to ap.parse args, I believe. And we're going to parse the arguments that came in. So that creates this ops object that's going to have dynamically added an attribute called file if we passed it in. So I'm going to say if ops.file, if we got a file from the command line passed in here, then I'm going to say lines is equal to open ops.file, and I might so if you're on Windows, you might want to be particular and say like encoding as UTF-8. And we're going to open that. We will read that, and then we'll split that on new lines. That should give us our lines. And then let's call evaluate line. So I think this wants the number of passwords that are true. So what I can do is I can just say sum, and I'm going to sum, and I'll use a generic expression here. I'm going to say eval line for line in lines. Okay, this works, or should work, because Python treats true and false as 1 and 0. So let's push this up the hill, see what happens here. Python 3, day 2, and I'll just do -h here. And it's argv, not args. Okay, so one of the nice things about using this is we get this command line help here. We say -h. I probably come in here and say like help is equal to file name to parse or something like that, and that should give me that file name to parse. So let's run this here. F with input. Okay, and I got an error here. So how do you debug errors? Got a couple options. I think I talked about this the other day. One is your rubber duck debugging here. So I don't have a rubber duck. I do have the Beatles. So let's pick one of the Beatles here. Who should we choose? We'll choose Paul, I guess. Okay, Paul. So I'm just going to do rubber duck debugging, which is a style of debugging where you explain to someone what's going on and maybe they can help you. It turns out that your brain, if you use a different portion of your brain, like speaking about it, can figure out things about your code that just looking at your code you wouldn't figure out. So I can see that the error here is on this line 23, where we're casting these in here. And so let's just walk through and explain to Paul what's going on here. So Paul, I am opening my I'm running my file. I'm running the main function with the command line arguments. I've sliced them, making a parser. Apparently I've got a file off that. I'm trying to read the lines from that. And with the lines there, with all the data there, I'm reading it. This will give me a string with everything from the file. I'm going to split it on new lines. This should be the individual lines from that. And then I'm going to sum up calling eval line for every line in lines. Eval line is going to get the ranges. This should be numbers 1 and 2, and apparently this is failing here. Get ranges somewhere. On the line, we're going to split it based on spaces. We're going to pull off the first entry in that, which should be some number dash some other number. And so we're going to split this. Num should now be those two values there, and it should be a sequence with those two values, and we're going to cast both of them into numbers. Okay, so that I'm not getting it. Paul, you're not helping me. So that kind of failed. So I'll do another style of debugging here that might help, which is called print debugging. Just come in here and say, let's print nums. Okay, and let's push this back up the hill. We might get a lot of output here. Okay, so it looks like the last line here is failing. Let me just print the line here. And because this line is empty, I'm just going to put some junk out here. I'm going to say like line, comma. just so I know that I've got that. Okay, so we've got the empty line here. It looks like B9 through 11 times is the last one. Okay, and so that is our data. We've got a line after that. Let me just play around in the REPL here and open this file up. Say Python 3, I'm gonna say data is equal to open, and it's input.txt. And I'm gonna say lines is equal to data.split. And let's split that on a new line. Oh, I gotta read it. Okay. Let me go up here's data, and I'm gonna read this. Okay. Let's just look at the last maybe 10 characters of this. So I'm gonna use a slice and say -10 to the end. Okay, so there's a new line at the end. So this is the issue here. So if you have a split here, and I'm gonna say like hello, instead of a new line, I'll put a dash here, and we say split on this with a dash. Note that it gives me that empty string at the end. So what can I do? I can get rid of the new line at the end. So I could cut off that new line. I could do that by stripping this. That will fix it. Alternatively, I could put some checking in here and say if line is an empty string, or if not line, then return there. But then this sum, I'd have to make sure that returned false, which would still work in this case. But I'm just going to split it off so I'm not feeding in bogus data in there. Okay, let's try it now. Okay, 569 is what it says the answer is. Let's type in the magic numbers, 569. Okay, we got it. Hooray. Okay. So this was my solution here to this one. Let me just go over it and discuss what I like about it, maybe what I don't like about it. So I did not use regular expressions here. I think that would be what most people would jump at, to use regular expressions. Do I have anything against regular expressions? Not really. I mean, I'm actually thinking about making a course on regular expressions. However, like I generally don't I don't search for regular expressions unless it's something that I absolutely need. In this case, because I can split it out pretty easily, I feel, this might seem weird, I feel more comfortable with this, but this might be an oddity of mine. Like it's probably not the case that someone who's reading my code is going to be more comfortable with this than a regular expression that pulls these values out. So maybe that's just a bad bias of mine. But so we got eval line here. Maybe I should put some documentation that says like returns true if the password has the character n through m times. And then I'll say like n-m car password. Okay, I've got some examples of that in there. I think that's okay. Get ranges, I think get ranges is okay. I got a command line parser here. I mean, one thing I might want to do is factor out this summing into its own function, but I think we're okay here. So that is my first part of day 2. So thanks for watching. Hopefully this was somewhat enlightening to you.